So, the people of Bethel. The best way I could do this is just by organizing it in this way. Because when you go to Bethel, you are being constantly scrutinized to see where you best fit ultimately, especially if you didn't come in with like a degree or skills or something like that. um, your identity is pretty much your department, and that's how you are viewed. You're viewed as, oh, he is a service department guy, or they work in XYZ department, so this is who you can expect from them, when you meet them. Oh, they're those type of guys. So I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone, and we're gonna talk about the departments at Bethel and who those people are, stereotypically, um, and how they kind of act in my interactions with them, or our interactions with them as Bethelites. Now, kind of funny, but I'm sitting outside of a Kingdom Hall that I used to go to in my old territory, and in my hometown, that has been sold to the Israel of God, of all people. So I think the best group to start with, we'll just go through the whole hierarchy, is the governing body. And unfortunately, I don't really have a lot to say about the governing body, because I did know them. Again, I told you before who was alive at the time that I was there and who was working at the time that I was there, on the governing body. They were not special, really. They just kind of were like these grandpas or uncles, we viewed them as. They just were normal people. We knew some of us knew their families. Some of us would be a little bit closer to some of them than others. They had different personalities. They were pretty personable to us. Never had really any issues. Some of them did like nice things. Some of them didn't like any attention, and some of them really did like attention. I think you know who we're talking about. But for the most part, I never really had a bad experience with the governing body, one-on-one. And I did have experiences with them one-on-one more than a few times. So, uh, not much there. Now, the helpers of the governing body, kind of the same thing. Most of the people who are helpers of the governing body, there's like 20 members of 20 helpers of the governing body, I think, in the states alone, or at least at the time I was there. It could be more, actually. It could be more than that. A lot of them were just like secretaries, and again, just normal guys. We knew, between the governing body and the helpers, we knew their little quirks and things like that. No red flags. I would have never thought that, they were the cult leaders that they are. And to be honest, I don't even think they thought that they would be the cult leaders that they are. I don't think they planned on it getting as bad as it did. But that is who they are. And, bottom line, at the very least, they are careless with what they've said, how they've manipulated things, and that hasn't really done well for us at all, obviously, because we've had to bear the consequences of listening to their carelessness. And when I say careless, what I mean is they don't seem to care too much about what other people think about what they believe and what they teach. They also don't really seem to care too much about how things go. And with the change of the current governing body, who being who they are, the old governing body, those who kind of made it through to the new governing body that they are right now today, they don't really seem to be too excited about anything. They kind of just chill. And they're like, all right, fine. You want to wear beards, wear beards. So when they say the governing body doesn't care about what, I think they really do not care. You want to wear beards? fuck it, wear a beard here, damn. And so that's just, I mean, that's, nothing really too crazy about it. Just normal guys. The helpers are basically governing body members who are not anointed. That's pretty much who the helpers are. And the helpers are, sometimes, when a governing body member would get appointed to the governing body, they would come from, out in the field. They would be circuit overseers or something. They had to be in special full-time service. They'd come around. They get pulled into Bethel. They get a call, and they say, we want you to work with a department of the governing body, so one of the committees of the governing body, and you start working with them. And yeah, that's how that goes. I may talk a little bit more about how that goes further down the line, but really I'm just kind of just talking about the person that a governing body member is. And yeah, just various personalities, just normal people, no bad interactions with any of them, to be honest. And same goes with the helpers. The helpers are just loyalists. They are probably as perfect as you can get as a witness as you would want them to be. And I do believe that they believe their crap. I do believe that. I believe that they actually believe everything that they're saying for the most part. Personally, though, I will say that sometimes they did talk to us about how they may have been on the fence about a decision. But in their mind, if they're not necessarily harming anybody, whatever, let's make the decision. Let's go on with it. So yeah, I mean, no, they're not always on board. No, they're not always in agreement. They were not always in agreement. But they hit it pretty well from everybody else. I will say that they kind of just shuffled around Bethel. They weren't like, oh, look, here comes Brother Loesch. No, it wasn't like that. It was more like, oh, they're just kind of just bopping around the house. That's what it felt like. And they weren't always there. A lot of them weren't there. They were out and about. So we interacted with them weekly, but I wouldn't say necessarily daily, unless you literally work with them like every day, and that was your assignment. So yeah, that's it for both groups. Next, I think we probably need to talk about the branch committee, because that's a whole different story.